UFC Fight Night Vegas 60 Sandhagen versus Yadong takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card, starting with the early prelim opener of Niklas Motta versus Cameron VanCamp. I'm actually going to start this card with a massive underdog pick of Cameron VanCamp. He is a massive underdog against Niklas Motta. I don't really understand why. Niklas Motta, in my opinion, just got shown to be not all that special by being beaten by Jim Miller. I believe if you're anything real special in that lightweight division, you should be getting past the Jim Millers of the division and passing that test. And I think that puts him towards the lower level of UFC lightweights. And listen, Cameron VanCamp came in on short notice, upper weight class, against Andre Fialho, who had momentum at the time, and Fialho scored a big KO in the first round over him. However, Fialho's still dangerous. Jake Matthews looked like a wizard when he beat him. And Cameron VanCamp, who can grapple so well and has so many submission victories in his career, and so many times in his career where he's made easy work of an opponent by just completely ragdolling them into a submission, is massive compared to Niklas Motta. This is a giant lightweight. He's had a full camp for this fight. So I think if he can make weight well, I think he's going to have a massive size advantage, and I can see Niklas Motta getting put away by submission in the first round. So I'm going to go the first round submission win by Cameron VanCamp with a rear naked choke. Also, Niklas Motta, who probably needs to start fast in this matchup because VanCamp throws teeps to the body and calf kicks early on to wear down his opponent. If you want to catch him, you want to catch him early. And Motta's coming off a bad KO loss to Jim Miller in the second round. So I think if there's ever a time for him to be a bit hesitant, this might be that time. Plus, Cameron VanCamp's a young guy, so he's still got time to improve. He's got a lot of experience as well. I'm going to go with Cameron VanCamp in an upset win. I think this is a 50-50. Whoever gets their game off first, I think I'm going to go with VanCamp doing that. But he's a massive underdog, so I'm picking him to win. Moving on. Up the card, Tony Gravely versus Javid Basharat. I'm going with Javid Basharat is who I'm going with here. I think that's a pretty logical pick to make. Tony Gravely is a very talented guy for the bantamweight division, but that could just be in my opinion because nearly every bantamweight looks amazing. Is that what it is? I see a lot of these bantamweight prospects coming up and I'm thinking to myself, wow, they're amazing. And then they lose and I'm like, maybe just every bantamweight looks great. And I think maybe Tony Gravely is an example of that. He's coming off a big win against Johnny Munoz Jr., who I thought was very overrated, by the way, and didn't suit his record at all, which is why I picked Tony Gravely to win that fight. But he did look amazing. He got the big KO, uppercut to ground strikes finish. Before that, though, a little bit of a weird decision win where he kind of just, he out-controlled the guy, but it wasn't all that impressive. Then he lost to Nate Maness, and he hurt Nate Maness, and then Nate Maness beat him back, and then his debut was against Anthony Burkak, and Gialdo Frietas took him to a split decision. These are the worrying signs that I'm looking at on his record, and I'm seeing people the level of Nate Maness and Brett Johns be able to figure that out. So I believe that maybe Javid Basharat is on that level of opponent. Plus, he's got good backing. He's got his brother coming up as well. He's definitely born for it. Trains at Extreme Couture, an amazing gym to really develop at 27 years of age. He's taken some time off since his last fight, 6 months, ready to improve. And I feel like he's going to make real easy, not easy work. I think I'm going to say a 29-28 decision for Javid Basharat on damage. I think maybe Tony Gravely will out-grapple him in some moments. I think he will out-control him in some moments. But I think on the feet, Javid Basharat's going to be ripping the body, landing good shots to the head. And I think he might lose the first round, but win the second two. And win 29-28 by decision based on damage. He pushes a great pace. And Trevin Jones is a very underrated win to make it look as clear as he did. So respect to Javid Basharat. And he's only going to get better from here as well. Whereas Tony Gravely is 30 already. So I'm going to be going with Javid Basharat. I'm picking him to win. Decision. Moving on. Up the card. Mariya Agapova versus Gillian Robertson. I'm going Gillian Robertson. And I don't like that. But I don't like picking either of these girls, to be honest with you. Because they're just a bit 50-50, but after watching Mariya Agapova suffer the same fate again as sort of like costed her in her career against Marina Mirage, she got taken down and she just looks lost on the ground. Am I mistaken? Maybe I'm not, maybe I am, let me know. I'm seeing her fights, and Shayna Dobson was an interesting one. She was really putting a whooping on Shayna Dobson, and then again, she ends up on bottom and she just doesn't know what to do. I know she got a submission win in her second fight in the UFC and even in her first fight, but those are sort of like circumstantial submission wins that she got. Like, she hurt the opponent and then latched up a submission. It wasn't like a ground dominance display from her. But I'm going to go with Gillian Robertson. She's tough and she trains at a good gym and she's still very young for a women's fighter. She's still 27 years of age, and she's been in the UFC for a very, very long time. And yes, she lost a decision to JJ Aldridge, but JJ Aldridge is a very decent fighter in the women's divisions. She got a first-round win over Priscilla Cachoeira, which is a good win to have. Let's be real, Priscilla Cachoeira has been looking really good recently on a 2-fight win streak, coming off a big KO against Ariane Lipski, so I'm going to side with Gillian Robertson here. You know what I mean? She beat Caitlin Chookagian in a grappling match. That's kind of a big deal. Chookagian's top contender and looks good in grappling against Ribas and other top contenders in that division. So I'm gonna go with Gillian Robertson. She's been training her grappling. She's had a bunch of grappling tournaments towards the end of 2021, and I think it's going to translate over into this matchup. I think she knows what she has to do. Get the takedown. She trains with a great gym. She trains under Dean Thomas, who's a great guy himself, great trainer himself. So she knows the game plan. So I'm going to go with Gillian Robertson's submission win. Moving on, up the card, Trey Ogden versus Daniel Zellhuber, otherwise known as Ryan Garcia, from the Contender Series. I'm picking Daniel Zellhuber over Trey Ogden. Trey Ogden is underrated, though. So this is a risky pick, a risky favourite. You could sort of, do you believe in Daniel Zellhuber moving forward is what you're hoping for here. Trey Ogden trains under James Krause. Good fighter himself, knows where to be, but I really believe this. You should beat Jordan Levitt. I really, truly believe that as a statement in your career. Beat Jordan Levitt if you're good. I really... And that's why the Paddy Pimblett fight versus Jordan Levitt was big for me, because I think Jordan Levitt is good, but he's not special. You know what I mean? He's just okay. You need to get past that, and he didn't get past that. And some of his wins on the regional scene weren't the best either, and he has a couple of losses on the regional scene, and he's been submitted a couple of times and stuff like that. And I'm looking at Daniel Zellhuber, and he looks so perfect. He looks special. Like, there's something about this guy. You know what I'm saying? He looks crisp on the feet. He beat a great opponent on the Contender Series of Lucas Almeida, who was 12-0 at the time. That was really a case of, okay, whoever wins this one is getting into the UFC. And even still, Lucas Almeida got into the UFC, and he's won his debut by KO in the 3rd round. So, those were good contenders, and Almeida's gone on to win 2 in a row after that. Daniel Zellhuber's gone the other direction. He was young. He's 23 now. You know what I mean? I think he was 22 when he won on the Contender Series. He took a year to make sure he was ready for his debut, and I think he is ready for his debut. I'm picking him to beat Trey Ogden by decision win is what I'm going to go for here. Decision win. Trey Ogden's tough, and I don't think he'll get KO'd. He seems to have a good chin. I'm going to go with decision win for Daniel Zellhuber, 30-27. Moving on, up the card to another fight. Loma Lookboonmee versus Denise Gomes. No-brainer to me. Loma Lookboonmee. Denise Gomes, from what I've seen of her career, she's a distant striker. And Loma Lookboonmee, I know she's taking this on short notice, but she stays ready. She's one of those Thai-style fighters who's ready to go quite often in their career. And she fights out of Thailand, of course, foundation-style Muay Thai. So she's ready to go. Trains at Bangtao Muay Thai and MMA. I feel as though she's going to be ready for this. She got out-grappled by Lupita Godinez, but she showed some good signs there as well. She had a close fight with Angela Hill, and Angela Hill beat Lupita Godinez, so she's good. You know what I mean? She arguably beat Michelle Watterson and Claudia Gadelia, if we're being real, with Angela Hill. So I believe in Loma Lookboonmee, and I believe in her grappling a bit, because Sam Hughes has been out grappling other girls in a division since their fight. So I think if it's a striking match, which it's going to be between the pair of them, Loma Lookboonmee's got great striking. I'm picking her to win against Denise Gomes, who looked okay on the Contender Series. She got signed because she's a woman, but nothing too special. Loma Lookboonmee looks really technical on the feet, so I'll pick her to win this one. 29-28 decision, winning at strikes on the feet. Moving on, up the card, Aspen Ladd versus Sara McMann. Oh, this is a annoying one, really. I've been going back and forth on this one, to be honest, since yesterday. I'm going to go with Sara McMann over Aspen Ladd, I think. When I'm unsure to trust Aspen Ladd with some of the performances that she's had in her career, I don't know if I'm going to do that. You know what I mean? Like, she's young, 27 now. Like, she could be still making improvements compared to Sara McMann. But I feel like Sara McMann, she knows her game now. Like, it's just like, there's no like, oh, figure it out, have fun out there. Like, no, let's, for lack of a better term, wet blanket an opponent on top, do nothing with it, but just keep that position, make it a snooze fest. They can't get up if you're on top of them. Like, that's just kind of the situation that we're in here with Sara McMann. And she lost to Juliana Pena, I understand. She lost earlier in her career with some submissions, getting a little bit lazy on top. And she had a majority loss to Miesha Tate. She lost to Ronda Rousey, Amanda Nunes. You know what I mean? Like, these are different level fighters. Ketlin Vieira's like the top contender right now in that division as well. So I'm going to side with Sara McMann winning this one. And I think she's just going to get it done. Aspen Ladd seems too hesitant. And I can see her not wanting to let her hands go on the feet. I can see Sara McMann catching a hesitant Aspen Ladd with a takedown, ending up in half guard on top, and dominating that round. So I'm going to go Sara McMann, decision win over Aspen Ladd is what I'm going to go with here. Moving on. Up the card, Trevin Giles versus Louis Cosce. I'm going to go Trevin Giles here. I really am. I feel like the Cosce brothers, a lot of hype coming into the UFC. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm sensing a lack of hype now that we've seen them. I feel like Louis Cosce is the more talented of the two of them. He's definitely got more of the athletic gift out of the two of them. He seems to have a more of a first round finishing style, whereas when you look to the other side of things, you've got guys like Orion Cosce who are more of a cardio based break a fighter type style. So do I see him finishing Trevin Giles in the first round? In all honesty, he does have a chance. We don't know how good Trevin Giles' chin is going to be in that first round. Of course, he got beat by Michael Morales. He got beat by Dricus du Plessis. He's coming off 2 KOs in a row now. So are we going to trust him? I think we are against Louis Cosce. He's going to be way bigger than Louis Cosce. He's got a bit of a reach advantage on Louis Cosce as well. 3 inches of reach to work with. You know, he likes to work that jab. I don't see him getting out grappled here. And he seems to hold his own in grappling occasionally as well. So I'm actually going to side with Trevin Giles, being a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, wearing down on Louis Cosce, staying behind his jab with that reach advantage, and eventually winning himself like a 29-28 decision, maybe losing the first round after eating some big shots. But I reckon he'll survive and win this fight by decision. Moving on. Up the card, Damon Jackson versus Pat Sabatini. I'm going to go with Pat Sabatini here over Damon Jackson. Damon Jackson's good, but I keep noticing like there's a desperation when you watch a Damon Jackson fight. Like he finally gets himself into a good position, you know. Oh God, oh my God, thank God I ended up on top of that scramble. You know, like there's too much moments where it's like, thank God he ended up on top, or this could be a loss right now. You know, he seems to win a lot of fights like that, like barely doing enough with the control time. Whereas you look at a guy like Pat Sabatini, he's got wicked jiu-jitsu. His hands on the feet are interesting, but I don't worry about him against a guy like Damon Jackson. But I like he's short, stocky. We saw in Damon Jackson's last fight, actually, against, I'm going to find out the name of the guy right now, against Daniel Argueta. He had trouble beating a shorter opponent, because he had trouble keeping the back position and keeping top position against a shorter opponent who kept sitting up with his back to the cage and trying to turn around into the choke and stuff like that. So I feel like a shorter Pat Sabatini, like Daniel Argueta, but with a way better gas tank and not on short notice, which is what Argueta was taking that fight on. I think Pat Sabatini gets this one done. Plus, he's younger, way closer to his prime. We might be seeing a sort of deterioration of Damon Jackson, not just his hairline, but his age as well and his performance levels. So I'm going to go with Pat Sabatini in this fight by submission in the third round. I'll go with something like that. Moving on. Up the card, Anthony Hernandez versus Marc-Andre Barriault. I'm going Anthony Hernandez. I would not have said that before, maybe. But after watching Anthony Hernandez's last fight against Josh Fremd, I believe it was, the pace on this guy, it took away the fluke value of his Rodolfo Vieira win, of surviving those chokes and pushing the pace on Rodolfo and eventually submitting him. You got to put this guy out early. You aren't going to outpace him. And Andre Barriault relies on outpacing opponents to beat them. You know, he got KO'd by Chidi Njokuani, but he beat Jordan Wright. But Jordan Wright's Jordan Wright. Like, you're going to finish him or get finished. It's a finishing fight, you know what I mean? But when you look at other opponents like Abu Azaitar, Dalcha Lungi and Bula, we see Marc-Andre Barrios have to break these guys across the distance. Am I going to trust him to break Anthony Hernandez when he couldn't do it to Christoph Jotko and Yun-Yong Park and Andrew Sanchez? No, I'm not. I'm not going to trust him to do that. I think as this fight goes on, Anthony Hernandez will take control of the pace. And I think his heavy grappling style and also his striking, which has improved, is going to get the job done here in the later rounds. 29-28, close decision, competitive decision. But I reckon he'll eventually get the better of Marc-Andre Barrios, who's a bit too big and might slow down a lot faster than Anthony Hernandez does. So I'm going to go Anthony Hernandez decision win based on the last 2 rounds. Moving on up the card to another fight, which is Tanabosa versus Rodrigo Nascimento Ferreira. I'm going with Tanabosa by KO in the first round here, I think. He's got good hands for heavyweight. He's a young guy for heavyweight as well, now 31 years of age. He beat Andrei Arlovski, I believe. Anyway, he should have done more, but he beat him. And he arguably beat Ilir Latifi as well, so he's had a couple of weird decisions. He held his own against Cyril Gane for 3 rounds on the come-up as well, by the way. So I think he's pretty underrated. He's coming off a win right now. He's had a bunch of fights rescheduled, including this one against Rodrigo Nascimento Ferreira. I just feel like Rodrigo's a little bit slow on the feet sometimes. Yeah, he's got decent grappling. But if we watch him on the feet against a guy like Chris Daukaus, he just looks so sloppy on the feet and slow and open to shots. And Tanabosa's got wickedly quick hands in the pocket. So I can see them both feeling each other out. And then there being a moment where things get scrappy towards the end of the first round. And Bosa coming out on top of that situation. So I think Bosa's going to be way faster in the pocket. And I think he's going to land like a multiple punch combination finish at the end of the first round against Rodrigo Nascimento Ferreira. Moving on up the card. Alen Amedovski versus Joseph Pyfer. I'm going to go with Joseph Pyfer here. I reckon he gets this one done. I think this is a no-brainer. Alen Amedovski, to me, is like a guy they pay to lose to people. In all honesty, Joseph Holmes submitted him in the first round, won that fight with ease. Before that, he got beat by John Phillips with ease. John Phillips shouldn't be winning fights in the UFC. Fair play, he's got a good chin and he's a tough guy, but he ain't there to win. You know what I mean? And he's winning against you. That was a battle of the who's going to lose to the next up-and-comer next. John Phillips versus Alen Amedovski. Who's going to lose next fight? You know what I mean? But one of them needs a win, finally. You know what I mean? And eventually it was John Phillips. Got the first round KO. I just don't trust Amedovski to survive Joe Pyfer's power in that first round. He's reckless. He's small for the division. He isn't in the best of shape anymore either. He's 34 now as well. I feel as though Joe Pyfer, with a bit of a reach advantage here, a lot of momentum with the youth and a good gym that he's training with as well, I think we're going to see him sleep Alen Amedovski in the first round. So that's what I'm going to go for there. Moving on. Up the card, Andre Fili versus Bill Algeo. I love this matchup. It was supposed to be Andre Fili versus Lando Venata, of course. Bill Algeo stepped in on short notice. I'm not going to weigh that in too much, but I am going to weigh it in a bit. When you're a guy who needs to break people with cardio to win, stepping in on short notice isn't the best. It isn't the best. And when we hear about the reasons why he took this fight, he's having a kid in November. His child is due at the start of November. So he was desperate after his Herbert Burns win to make sure he got a fight before November. So I'm sure he's been staying ready. But it's not a full camp knowing you have an opponent coming up like Andre Fili has had here. And I also want to mention another thing. Bill Algeo's good, and if he wins this, I'm rooting for him moving forward because he's a great fighter. I'd love to see maybe him versus a Julian Erosa maybe. That would be a fun matchup. I like his personality as well. I think he could be a big name, but he's 33. So he's not going to be making rapid improvements between fights. And I feel as though Andre Fili, his main problem is in bouts. Unless you've got the cardio and duration and durability of a Max Holloway. The main problem Andre Fili comes up to, or comes face-to-face with, is power. He got KO'd by Joe Anderson Brito, and there's a reason why Bill Algeo is a slight favourite here, I believe. Or he's not big of an underdog despite the name of Andre Fili. And the majority of people are picking Bill Algeo as well. 70% of people are picking Bill Algeo is what I meant to say. He's the Tapology favourite. But I feel as though you can't just judge the Joe Anderson Brito fights. Algeo's made to beat people like Joe Anderson Brito. Big swingers, big explosive guys in the first round. Like Herbert Burns has a real explosive first round and it all dies down afterwards. Bill Algeo's made to beat those guys. But when we see Bill Algeo take on a guy who's just sort of like a well-rounded fighter that can have a durable fight and take it into those later rounds himself, like a Ricardo Ramos, he loses. Like a Ricardo Lamas, he loses. Now, Andre Fili's first name isn't Ricardo, so maybe he doesn't get this done. However, Spike Carlisle, very explosive guy early on. Algeo can survive it. He breaks him as the fight goes on. Same with Joe Anderson Brito. Same with Herbert Burns. Andre Fili will be there for the distance. He's got great cardio, and if he doesn't have to worry about power, like against Sadiq Youssef, who he lost to in a very close fight, or heavy grappling offense that's dangerous like Bryce Mitchell's, Algeo's more of a cage holder. He's not going to dominate you on top with blast double legs, you know what I mean, that you have to worry about. And he even dealt with Bryce Mitchell's grappling better than Edson Barboza, who's a massive guy for the division, and anyone else we've seen Bryce Mitchell grapple so far. But if he doesn't have to worry about power like he does when he fights Sadiq Youssef, Michael Johnson, Calvin Kattar, Yair Rodrigues, then he actually has a really good fight for himself. Looked great against Daniel Pineda, great against Jordan, great against Shaman Moraes, and I think he's just been looking better and better. But power's sort of held him back. Algeo has no power. So I think I'm going to go with Andre Fili. Decision win. If you're betting, I'd say wait. Algeo might end up the favourite, in all honesty, because a lot of people are picking him here. So I'd say wait until the fight day. Put some money on Fili if he goes into an underdog. I think I like this matchup for him. Moving on to another fight up the card, which is Chidi Njokuani versus Gregory Rodrigues. I'm going to go with Chidi Njokuani here over Gregory Rodrigues. I like Gregory Rodrigues, but I like Chidi Njokuani even more. I think he's such a talented guy in that division. I know he's 22-7, but again, let me take you to some of these losses that we're looking at here. Rafael Cavallo, John Salter, who's not a huge name, but 15-4, good, capable fighter early in Chidi Njokuani's career. Andrei Korshkov, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's fought good fighters. He fought Brandon Thatch when he was in 2011, just starting out his career, you know what I mean? Like, this guy's been around for a long time. He's very, very good. He beat Melvin Gillard on the regional scene. He beat Andre Fialho on the regional scene by first round KO. He's beaten Marc-Andre Barrios in the UFC by KO. Dusko Todorovic in the UFC by KO. Mario Souza's no joke on the Contender Series. He's fighting tomorrow against Ikram Aliskerov. Ikram Aliskerov, who was the guy that's gave Chimaev his toughest fight on the regional scene that people are talking about. He's very good. So Mario Souza's no joke. He's back on a 2-fight win streak since his loss to Chidi. I'm going to side with Chidi Njokuani here over Gregory Rodrigues. I just noticed like the Armen Petrosian fight, people that are good, capable strikers that can keep range and don't get into a scrap can do well against Gregory Rodrigues. But people that scrap it up, like Dusko Todorovic, like Yun Yong Park, like Julian Marquez, who's a messy brawler, Gregory's going to catch those guys. You know what I mean? He's going to catch those guys. He was losing to Yun Yong Park, and he caught him in a comeback KO win. I just feel as though Chidi's too powerful, too rangy, and too smart to get into those scrappy exchanges. And he's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage as well, with an 80-inch reach in the middleweight division. So I'm going to trust in Chidi Njokuani to win this fight by like a 3rd round TKO after a great scrap between the pair that looks very technical early on. Moving on to another fight on the card, which is the main event, I believe. Cory Sandhagen versus Song Yadong. I'm trusting in Cory Sandhagen, but I'm worried. I'm worried about Song Yadong because he is maybe the most, I'd say this, maybe the most underrated prospect in the UFC right now. People talk about the Shavkat Rakhmanovs because of the name value that they have and the undefeated record that they have, and he's coming up, he's beaten guys, but people do not realize Song Yadong is 24 years of age and he's fighting a top 5 contender at bantamweight. That's crazy. O'Malley's considered a young one. He's 28. Yadong is 24 years of... He will be in his prime when guys like Piotr Yan are retiring. He'll just be entering his prime when guys like Piotr Yan and Cory Sandhagen himself are retiring from the division. He's nearly he's 8 years younger than Aljamain Sterling. Like, this is crazy. For him to achieve this much so young in his career, and also to have experience losing. Like, it's not bad to lose when you're that young and you've got time to recover. He stayed so active early on that he has real potential now. You know what I mean? He won his debut, beat Vince Morales, beat Felipe Arantes as well. But I'm looking at some of the decisions that he's had in his career, like the fight against Vince Morales. What does Vince Morales do? He moves. He has herky-jerky movement. He switches stances on the outside. He moves around and he tries to point strike. And Yadong won that fight by mixing in some takedowns here and there and barely outlanding Vince Morales on the feet. And I'm looking at other competitions that he's had. And I think, yeah, Perez is a scrapper, Mexican tough guy. He comes in, he gets KO'd by Song Yadong. Fair enough, but Stamen gives him problems. And then Marlon Vera gives him problems as well. Arguably should have won that fight against Song Yadong, but it was close, I get it. So Vera's a very long-rangey guy that kicks at range and picks at range against his opponents. And then Casey Kenny had some problems with him, but gave Yadong massive problems in that fight, moving around a lot on the outside and switching stances. And then Kyler Phillips, what does he do, guys? He kicks at range, he moves around, he switches stances. If you're a basic fighter, Yadong probably will beat you. And that win over Marlon Vera is amazing because of that. But is that just the style that he likes to fight? Am I noticing a trend here with these opponents that move and switch stances around the outside, like Kyler Phillips, like Casey Kenny, like Vince Morales earlier in his career, that are giving him tough fights or beating him? If Kyler Phillips can do it, I truly believe that Sandhagen can. I'm not saying Phillips dominated him. It was a very close fight. But I think Song Yadong's the next level to those guys. And this is a 5-rounder, and he can keep it up for a 5-rounder as well. Yadong started to break in that Vera fight in the 3rd round. You can argue all you want about him securing the first 2, maybe. He lost the 3rd for sure. So, beating Marlon Moraes by KO. He's a scrapper. He's explosive early on. Yadong beat him to the punches and KO'd him. Fair play. Sandhagen's different. I think he's too good, too rangy, too smart. He's still going to be improving. 30 years of age. I like that he took time off after his last loss to Piotr Jan in October of last year. That's nearly 11 months off, which I think is great for him because he was starting to get into a routine of really tough fights. He arguably should have beaten TJ Dillashaw. Should have beaten TJ Dillashaw when you rewatch it. Beat Moraes himself. Obviously lost to Algeo, but Yadong's not really going to offensively grapple against him here, I don't believe. I just think he's a different level of striker. I really do. He's so good, and he's taken a long time off to improve his game. And he knows that he can be good enough to get the belt. You know what I mean? If like a Jan becomes champ, Sandhagen knows on a certain day I can beat him. And I think that's going to sort of motivate him after those losses. Or if like a Dillashaw becomes champ, Sandhagen's going to go, I know I can beat him. You know what I mean? And he's younger, so I'm going to go with Sandhagen. Decision win based on the last 3 rounds, I think is what I'm going to go with, or maybe 4 rounds. So I'm going to say some scorecards 48-47, some scorecards 49-46. Competitive until the end, but as the rounds go on, less and less competitive, and more in favour of Cory Sandhagen after he maybe loses the first round. Like and subscribe. Toodle pip, I'll see you later. Goodbye. Yeah.